Good evening and welcome to Frankly Speaking, where truth is our mission, reality our realm, said as we see it and frankly as well.
3,000 but it's the next iteration of an existing system.
But it's a design, it's not manufacturing anything.
I think there should be, there are restrictions. You have to be licensed to carry a weapon.
Addiction, and I think that if we took a more compassionate approach, we might find more of a solution.
Radical swing of the pendulum. Now we're, it's more liberal, more progressive, more.
It's time for us to honor those folks who, send comments to it.
Good evening and welcome to Frankly Speaking, where truth is our mission, reality our realm, said as we see it and frankly as well, with myths to dispel. Mr. Crowley, how are you this evening?
How do you keep doing that? You say every week you say it without making any mistakes. I could never do that. I'm so impressed.
My bunny, my Energizer bunny. Doesn't mean I know anything, it's just a microchip.
Yeah.
Listen, we're going to take a little spin around Lynn here.
Spin around Lynn. I'm ready. Let's go.
Got it? So let me ask you, what's the key to Lynn revitalization? What do you think it is?
Expansion of the commercial tax base.
That makes sense. So unless you have revenue, you can't do very much. But our congressman says the key to Lynn is transportation. So what he'd like to see, they've been talking about this for as long as I can remember, is the extension of the Blue Line to the city of Lynn, to connect Lynn with the South Shore, and to double the train capacity. Do you think that's the case?
A good friend of ours and a friend of the city of Lynn is former Mayor Tom Costin. He was the youngest mayor ever elected to the highest office in Lynn back in the 50s. And one of his campaign promises was bringing the Blue Line to Lynn. I was born in 59, so I can do the math. I'm 57 years old, so this has been going on for 57 years. So now Seth Moulton's going to bring the Blue Line to Lynn?
That's what he said.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He said that's the key to revitalization. He was at a Lynn Area Chamber of Commerce dinner.
By the way, can I just say that the key to revitalization is what I said. It's the expansion of the commercial tax base. As you expand the commercial tax base, you will force public-private partnerships around expanding the transportation options in the city. And that could be the Blue Line, it could be more fixed route buses, it could be a link from I-95 and Route 1 to the Linway through the Marsh Road. I mean, it could be a lot of things, but you build it and they will come is not my, I don't buy that. I think it needs to be, so it's like the downtown, right? They got 300 residential condominiums down there that they built back in 2004 or 5 or 6, that era, right? Before the market collapsed. They didn't have parking, they didn't have coffee shops, they didn't have restaurants, they didn't have dry cleaners, all the stuff that you would need to support residential base, right? So now we go through a cycle. We got all those condos built and occupied, then there was a decline, and now it's starting to come back. So now there's more condos going in, there's more residential in there, there's more commercial in there, and now you're starting to see the restaurants pop up and all the service providers. I mean, they're putting a Domino's pizza in Central Square.
I saw that.
I mean, I think that's crazy, but the fact of the matter is...
Also Dunkin' Donuts.
Well, that's been there for a while. My point is that when national chains like this go into an area they don't come to Lynn, period. For them to actually make a commitment to the downtown says an awful lot. It really does, about the opportunity that exists here. And that's not, they didn't need the Blue Line to come. They needed to see economic activity, and they're seeing it. Well, and that's commercial base type stuff.
Let me go to an editorial that I saw in the item. And if we put up that graphic, which is caught in the middle, and what it is, it's about Pickering Junior High School.
Okay.
And they say, we need to build a new junior high school, and where are we going to build it? I mean, that's what it comes down to, right?
Yeah, there's basically 3 sites that I've been hearing about. There's putting it on Parkland Ave, between the Bach, where the dogs go, where they have the dog park between there and the reservoir. That's one place. Second place is Gallagher Park. Third place is the Meadow.
And
I'm sorry. It's not the Meadow. It's the Magnolia Playground.
Right. But also they're mentioning McManus.
That's for the second one. That's for like a
for
second
number
school.
two?
Yes.
They're saying we need 2 new middle schools?
Right. And by the way, the first one is a decidedly East Lynn, Wyoming Square, Ward 1 kind of need. And it's going to be, there's a lot of noise that comes out of Ward 1, as you know. Being a former city councilor, if they don't like something, they make a lot of noise. So if they were to put the new Pickering in West Lynn or down by Lynn Tech,
Not going to happen.
no, it's not going to
I mean,
happen.
think about it.
No, I
Tell
don't
me
think
about
so.
Breeds Pond. Is Breeds Pond part of the reservoir system?
Yeah, I think so.
Because that's the site that they're talking about.
Walden Pond and Breeds Pond are basically the reservoir system
I got you.
for Lynn, I think.
And building a school there would not violate the sanctity of
I
the
don't
reservoir?
know. I mean, I'd like to ask Steve Babbitt what he thinks about putting it up there.
Well, that's the whole point, because you're going to be disrupting the ecosystem, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, there'll be a lot of conservation issues and so forth. But, I got to tell you that when people have the political will to do something, they get it done, irrespective of the rules. They built classical on a dump.
I want to get into this editorial because I'm fascinated by wording.
Yep.
And so they describe Pickering Middle School that I was at, my grandkids attended there, one of them still there. I substitute there often. And it says, and I started teaching there, as a matter of fact, many years ago. It's described as dilapidated Pickering Middle School with its water-stained walls in World War I era classrooms. That's not painting a very pretty picture, right?
Well,
But I did not notice that. The
tells me it was built 100 years ago.
That's true,
Yeah.
but so isn't the University of Gutenberg, was probably 500 years ago and still operating pretty well. You see anybody ripping down Harvard?
Right. Well, don't get me started on
Well,
the
sure.
lack of maintenance that exists in Lynn,
not just
Lynn
that.
assets. Yeah.
It's not just that, it's that you can retrofit anything.
Right.
All right. So, but that description is there to incite emotion, correct? Dilapidated.
Oh, sure.
There,
Yeah.
okay.
There's a lot of politics and influence peddling that goes on in these things.
Now, as you move down the editorial, it says, here's the problem Lynn has. You talked about commercial just a bit back, and they're saying we're land poor.
Yes, and that's always been the problem.
So if we're land poor, it's difficult to have commercial when you don't have land, and it's difficult to build schools when you don't have land, but we actually do. It's just the allocation of it. For example, you and I drove by this big swat of land, otherwise known as General Electric, they were hiding the fact they were ripping down buildings. Now, why can't we? I mean, what is General Electric? They're down a skeleton now, aren't they?
Right. They could operate out of maybe a 1 or 2, but they probably have 2,000 or 3,000 employees.
But there's a huge stretch of land there that could be utilized for
Right.
whatever.
The
right?
Riverworks is massively.
Exactly. If you had imagination like they did in Beverly after the United Shoe went by the boards, right?
Well, the only way that's going to happen, Joe, first of all, you got to remember that it took, I don't know how many, 1985 they built the Factory of the Future, right? Mm-hmm. And it didn't last very long. Before it was obsolete almost immediately after it was built, right? And then it laid fallow for 30 years, right? Now they're actually doing something with it, right? They're putting the market basket over there, right? It took them 30 years to move on that property. That was kind of a catalyst, I think, to moving more properties, because shortly after that, Charlie Patzios came to terms with the GE on the Gear plant, which was on the Linway side of the Riverworks. And that's a huge parcel. They're talking about putting 1,200 units over there, apartments and all that. So, there is some land in the city, and GE does have a lot of it, that land that's available. The problem up until now has been the liability associated with the contamination, because the GE, for all the good citizenship that they may portend, they have been contaminating our environment they don't do it anymore. I guess supposedly they don't, but they did for years and years and years up there in the Riverworks.
So be it.
Yeah.
A tidal wave, they claim in the editorial, a tidal wave of students rolling out of elementary schools and into the local middle schools. Now the question becomes, why is that the case? Why do we have a tidal wave of students in the city of Lynn? You alluded to it a couple of shows back.
Yeah, and we haven't actually seen any growth in the census because
What's that linkage there, Paul?
there's the refugees, the unaccompanied minors, illegal immigration, and ultimately I think the question it's that 1950 designation by the United Nations as a sanctuary city, or no, that's not what they call it. What do they call it?
No, we're called it's a refugee city.
Refugee city. Yeah.
Right. But the irony of it all is, I bumped into one of the city mothers the other day in a little conversation who suggested that there are nonprofits whose sole purpose is to settle groups of people in the city of Lynn from Somalia or from war-torn areas.
Right. So they get paid very well to do it too.
And they get they have a vested interest in increasing it because it keeps them active.
Right. Yeah, it's a volume game.
And you can't trump that, using a funny word, and you should be able to. Why is it the city of Lynn must, and why does the State Department allow a third party, namely the United Nations, to violate the sovereignty not only of the United States, but of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the city of Lynn? I mean, is that something wrong with that?
Well, that's what this whole election is going to be based on, right?
Exactly.
It's basically since 1950 at least they've been moving towards a globalized society, right? Mm-hmm. And
and oligarchies, right?
You know what the next most powerful person in the world is going to be? The king of the world. Who's the king of the world? That's going to be the next big title, right? King of the world.
King of the world, Emperor of the universe, Master of the universe.
King of the world, King of Earth.
Well, I hope
that's what we're going. I mean, right now the most powerful person in the world is the President of the United States, right?
Arguably.
As soon as they can shred the Constitution and eliminate our borders, we become a world order, right? And then we're talking King of the World stuff. Sorry, that's just the way it's going.
There's something to be said about that. We'll hold that for a different moment.
You know who wants to be king of the world, don't you?
King of the world?
I do.
Well, I got in a little difficulty by mentioning a few things myself. Because see, I'm not a herd type of guy. I'm an individualist. I'm like Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, Huxley, and Orwell. I believe in the primacy of the individual.
So do I.
The individual moves things, not groups. I don't. This is me. I may be wrong, folks. I don't think it takes a village to raise a child. I think it takes a mother and a father.
Right.
And so we have different thoughts. I come from a different generation with different ideas.
Yep.
Some good, some bad, I suppose. Subject to improvement, though. I mean, if you can give me a better idea.
It's nice to have. It would be nice if the village would help when necessary.
But it's
right. But it doesn't need to be the primary. Right.
And by the way, I'm not opposed to social units because obviously a family is a social unit.
Yeah.
It's the question of the individual is unique.
Yeah.
Paul, there is no one today or in the past or in the future that will be equal or like you or identical to you. Never. It's an impossibility.
Right.
And that goes for everybody out there watching the show, the 4 or 5 people that are, and the rest of the world.
I think we get more than that.
I know that. But I mean, the point of the matter is uniqueness is to me precious.
Right.
Being homogenized into some type of meaningless mass of lemons or sheep troubles me.
Right.
So, question 2, Paul. This has got me baffled, and it puts me in a funny position because I spent my life in education, and there's this question 2. Apparently, if you vote for it, tell me what that means.
So 2 is about expanding the charter school cap by
up to 12.
Up to 12, right? Yeah. So that would be in a community. I don't know. I don't really understand the underlying details, but the bottom line is the advocates for it are to expand choice for parents who have children in school systems that are at or near failing, and it's not fair to the kids.
It isn't.
And the fact of the matter is, and this is the argument that they make on the advocacy side, is that we need to allow choice, and we need to eliminate the when we talk about oligarchy, how about the monopoly of the teachers union, which basically dictates more about the education of the kids than the parents do.
But I want to make this clear. Are not charter schools public schools?
Yeah?
So it isn't an issue of all of a sudden, and isn't every student in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts allocated a sum of what per pupil cost that child would have?
Right.
And that allocation can be moved anywhere. In other words, it isn't as if they're trying to claim that money will be drained from the public school system. It's just going to be redirected.
Right.
Not.
Right. And there are some things that I think that the opponents
Yeah.
can argue to a certain extent. It does pull money out of this system. And for example, let's say that Johnny Jones goes to a charter school, right? The money goes with him, and then Johnny Jones isn't up to standards. He's a disruption. So
Goes back into the Lynn system. Does the money go back?
My understanding is it does not, and
That's-
that should be fixed. That should be
That
fixed.
should be fixed.
Right. But when I'm trying to assess this question, the answer to this question, what we should do, I mean, I'm pro charter school. I think more choice is good, and it's interesting that most people who of liberal.
Let me hold you on that because I want to go over some figures. It goes to show you how bad polls are, folks. I mean, for example, UMass Amherst WBZ poll. The question was asked. 49% of likely votes were in favor, and those opposed were 39%. That's a 10-point gap.
Right.
That's like landslide numbers, right?
Right.
However, how about this one? A recent Mass Inc. WBUR, doesn't surprise me, that's public.
That public radio
Yeah.
and Mass Inc. is a
that
very
was
liberal.
An entirely different result in which 41% were for and 48% were opposed. I mean, that's an unusual flip.
Mass Inc. claims to be a nonpartisan group, and they're not. They're
Obviously,
very, and WBUR is a very partisan group as well. So I think that they probably, the tone and direction of the questions is the key to it. But let me just say something. I think that if people are trying to figure out what the right answer and the wrong answer is in something like this,
That's what I want to talk about.
when you have the rhetoric flying this and that, and everybody's saying this, and we see it in the presidential election, you shouldn't vote for her for this, or him for that, and all the stuff. If you really want to get right down to it, all you got to do is look at who's behind the positions, and who is the number one group that is behind opposition to question 2 is the teachers union. So there you have it. So the teachers union doesn't want it. So
Let me stop
you can
right
draw
there.
your conclusion from
They're
that.
not the only ones. The Democratic Party of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is also opposed to it.
But that's
and
that's
Elizabeth Warren is opposed to it.
but that's because they both draw their power from
But-
the unions.
But she gets a hernia. She is
Right.
tails I win, tails I win, heads you lose, or whatever.
Right.
Because she turns out, oh, I really think that she praises charter schools, and then she turns around and she says, well, I'm a little concerned about the expansion, therefore I cannot support it.
Right.
I mean, that's happening it both ways.
She wants the protection of the union, and the union is powerful,
What
and that's
about
what they do.
Representative Lynch? He's a Democrat. He's opposed to it.
'Cause he-
For it. I'm sorry, he's for it.
I would, what I say. I mean, I got to know him when he ran for Congress because he came to Lynn. And I got to meet him a little bit and got to know him. He's the kind of guy that's pragmatic. He may be a Democrat, and he may even have a lot of left-wing views on things. But by and large, I think he votes his conscience and he does the right thing.
Listen,
And that's the difference.
Whether he's left or right, if he comes to the right conclusions, it doesn't matter, does it?
That's my point.
Yeah. So I'm going to read something to you. I want you to tell me whether it's true or false. Question 2 will absolutely result in hundreds of millions of dollars being sucked out of our district schools and handed to privately run charters. That's why more than 130 locally elected school committees across the state have voted to oppose question 2, and 0 have voted to support it.
Right.
That was Steve Crawford.
Okay, so here we so 130 school committees, right?
Right.
Let's just say that every school committee has 6 people. That's 780 school committees have voted in opposition to it, right? Where did they get their support? From the teachers union. And those who said nothing and wouldn't support it are also worried about losing the support of the teachers
So
union.
you say that's false, that statement.
All I'm saying is that the teachers' union is having...
Meaning that statement is false.
The teachers' union has an oversized influence on the outcome.
How about that in effect, if you vote no, right, that you're actually voting for the status quo?
That's exactly what you're doing.
Okay?
And I want
question
to
then
upset the
becomes,
status quo.
Is the Democratic Party the party now of the status quo?
They always have been, yep.
Always has been?
In Massachusetts, as long as I can remember. I mean, I collect political memorabilia a little bit here and there, and I actually won on eBay a Leverett salt and stall for governor button. You know, a little button like that, right?
Yeah.
You put it on your lapel or whatever, and so. And what I do is it gives me a reason to like look up and learn about these guys. So I'm reading a little bit about Salt and Stall, and he was around in the 30s and the 40s, and back then, and he was a Republican back then.
Oh yeah.
And so Republican governors have really been have been involved in the state government around here for many years, even though we've always been predominantly controlled by the Democrats.
Christian Herter was a Republican. John Volpe was a Republican. There's been a slew of them.
Right.
William Weld in recent times, right?
Yep.
Salucci. So Baker right now, who also is in favor of question 2. Now,
by the way, let me just say that I would say that it takes a lot of courage to take a position in favor of charter schools in a state where the union is so powerful and can adversely impact your ability to get reelected.
well, a union fellow named Brian Doherty, he's the general agent for the building construction trades, etc. His argument is only 4% of the population are being educated by charter schools. That's because they put a clamp on it, that's for one reason. Yeah. But here's the classic. This absolutely drives me up a wall. What do you think he has to say? He says, we don't need Wall Street billionaires telling us how to run schools. Do you know how many Wall Street billionaires are involved in this question, or is this another one of those?
Well, yeah, it's the straw man argument, right?
God.
But in addition to that, I would argue, well, you need somebody to do it because we have a challenge educating. There used to be a time when we didn't educate 100% of our kids, right?
But who are the billionaires given to, Paul? To the party that's opposed to it, right? The billionaires aren't giving it to Charlie Baker,
right,
and the Republican Party.
They're giving it to the Dems.
Yeah, all of them.
Right.
I mean, Elizabeth Warren, she's supposedly opposed to Wall Street. They're feeding her too.
Right.
I mean, it's unbelievable. You know what the funniest one of all I heard? How about this one? Joe Biden, who you gotta love, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's a decent guy.
Uncle Joe, yeah.
He's a good Joe. Joe, you're a good Joe. You know what he was quoted as saying a week or two ago?
What's that?
He was amazed and bemused, is that a good word? Bemused by the fact that a socialist, Bernie Sanders, has more money than he does. Is that a classic? So that was that one. Now, Paulie, we find that Elizabeth Warren is opposed to 2. Steve Walsh, a Democrat, is for 2. The governor is for 2.
Steve Walsh? Did you say?
No, not Walsh. Lynch.
Lynch.
Right. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Yeah.
I don't want to get.
He's agnostic on these matters now. He doesn't need to take position. So can I just take a?
Keep going.
I want to go on a lighter note. I want to ask people about the windmill on the Linway.
The what?
The windmill on the Linway. You've seen it, right? That big thing.
But I love it.
Right, but did you ever notice that it's not always pointing the same way?
No, you mentioned this to me once before, and I forget what you said.
So I can't figure this out. It drives me crazy, and I've never seen it like shift. Like it's on some type of pivot, so it kind of moves with the wind. It doesn't actually do that. But every time I go and I look at it, I drive down Commercial Street going to the Linway, and it's always kind of positioned in a different way, and I never noticed that. And I suppose there's probably some practical engineering approach to it. You want to point it towards the wind or whatever. That obviously, right? So you can get the most spin out of it and all that kind of stuff. But I just wondered if, you folks at home, if you care to respond, I'm curious if anybody have noticed.
You don't know the answer?
I guess I do. I mean, it does move.
Let me know.
Well, I can tell you that it's never in the same position twice.
I know that, but why?
I think it's moving, it has to, it's all about moving it towards the direction of the wind.
That makes sense, well,
Right.
well thought out there.
But I'm just wondering if anybody else has noticed that, because I was driving down the street, this was a couple of years ago, and all of a sudden I said, wait a minute, it was spinning clockwise yesterday, and now it's spinning counterclockwise.
That's profound, Paul. I
It's
think
not profound, it's just something that.
By the way, I kind of like it. I mean, when people talk about renewable energy and things of that nature, I really don't have a problem with a few of those here and there. Do you?
Not really. I mean, it is kind of an archy thing. It just,
It depends. If you
Right.
can make it look a little more
Right.
sophisticated, but
What I would really like to know
Right.
is was it worth doing? That's
Well, that's
economics.
That's a different issue. But you know what I don't like, that I think are absolutely aesthetically ugly, and they're all over the place, is solar panels.
On the roofs.
They've got to come up with a better way. Solar panel, to me, devalue property. And here's a funny feature. You asked to put a solar panel, because they've been trying to get me now, I have no desire. You have to hook up for 20 years. They put that on your house for 20 years, and that's it. And you know what they're doing? They're using your roof to generate energy, of which they give you a piece of it back, but they keep the balance of it.
Right.
So you're producing for them.
Right.
It's a
But
great scam.
you can also get a $10,000 investment credit or energy credit from.
Well, they take that in order to put it on your roof for nothing. You get what I mean?
No,
They don't? So on top of them putting it on your roof for nothing, you get $10,000
yeah,
credit off of where? How?
it's a non-refundable credit, but it's against the state of Massachusetts taxes. So let's say that you pay $5,000 a year in state taxes. Next year, in the following year, you would pay zero taxes. You would get all that money back, but you would spend like $30,000 installing it.
Well, what if it gets installed for nothing? Like these tell you they install it for nothing, but you signed a 20-year contract with them, so they're using your roof to generate electricity, of which they give you a piece of it back, a discount back.
That's a different argument. Now you have to be talking about what kind of economic value are you going to derive from it?
Well, I said, I feel nuts.
Are you going to get, like, is your tax bill going to go to, I mean, is your electric bill going to go to zero?
Of course not. It's going to be reduced. That's
By
the
how
whole
much?
point. Well, that's it. You don't know. So they give you these funny little figures.
A lot
I'm always subject
of games going there. I have a tax client that kind of got screwed. They spent $30,000 to get this, and they thought that they were going to be getting a $10,000 refund. And the fact is that they don't get the refund unless it's only against taxes paid. So they have to get the money back over the future years, because in the year that they did it, they had no tax liability. So it's a kind of a crappy thing.
People talk about those windmills looking, like maybe not aesthetically that attractive. Well, how about those power lines? They look terrible, don't they? When you go in Lynn Woods or wherever, and you got these power lines running all over the place. I mean,
Well, yeah, I mean,
it's almost like
right,
Frankenstein,
right.
Ginning up a little electricity.
By the way, another tidbit of information about the windmills.
Yeah.
When the windmill is going around like this, right? Do you know how fast the blades are going, traveling? Just take a guess at how many miles per hour those blades are going in a normal wind when it's spinning.
15.
15 miles an hour. What do you think at home? I'll tell you at the end of the show. Think about it.
15, no good?
No good.
I think slower. Oh, you're saying higher? I don't buy it.
200 miles an hour.
What?
Yep. When they're going right, when they're going at full speed, 200 miles an
That
hour.
little turn that I see is 200 miles an
Yep.
hour? Maybe I am smoking that funny stuff. I don't know. Anyways, Elizabeth Warren has this to say. She says this specific proposal, meaning question 2, means for hundreds of thousands of children across the children, of course, are going to be affected negatively. That's a winner every time. Across the Commonwealth, especially those living in districts with tight budgets where every dime matters. Education is about creating opportunity for all children, not about leaving them behind.
All right,
That's another contradiction of terms.
So I would say, all right, Senator Warren, then tell us how we're going to, with the existing money we have, guarantee an education for all of those kids, because you can't do it, and you haven't been able to do it, and the Democrats have been ruining our education system for a lot of kids for a lot of years, and something needs to change.
My point is simply this. isn't competition a good thing? Doesn't that
Absolutely,
upgrade?
yeah.
All right, so the more competition you have, the more charter schools, it's the opposite. She says the kids will be left behind.
Right.
The reason why they're left behind now is because there is no competition.
Right.
And these inner city schools, as pointed out in
That's
this
my
election,
point.
by the way,
Right.
for people who are
Right.
listening, like Detroit and Chicago and
Right.
Philly are not doing all that well. But if you had competition
Right.
and got those kids out educated,
And-
they would have the commercial property tax base you're talking about.
Right, and another piece of this thing, and you're a teacher, right? So you would think that you would have the other position, but you're not the union. You're the teacher. You're the one that's in the classroom with the students. You're the one who cares about those kids. You're the one that cares that they get a good education, and do everything you can to help them do that. Now, it's not just up to you to do it. It's the parents involved. The kids have to participate, and all that kind of stuff. But the union is a very different animal. The union does not really care primarily about the interest of the student. They only care about their power.
You know, I can't be caught up in that. What I'm caught up in is this, what you said, the education of the kids. Here's the way I look at the question in charter schools, because I'm not that knowledgeable to make a definitive statement. If there's a problem, like what you just described earlier to me, we'll use $10,000 because that's an easy figure to deal with. $10,000 to Paul Crowley, who leaves Lynn English High School or Lynn Tech or Classical to go to KIPP Academy, right? That money follows you. So that, in effect, does not really, it's not a net loss. It's just a transfer, okay? But if KIPP Academy keeps that money and throws the kid out and that kid goes back to Tech, Paul Crowley goes back to Tech, and that money doesn't follow him back again, that's not right.
Right.
So that needs to be fixed. I'm not, and anybody who tells you otherwise is blowing smoke.
And it also is an unfair comparison to say that the success rate as a percentage for the charter schools is so much higher than the percentage of the
No, it
public
is
school.
not.
It's not a fair comparison, but
No.
but I don't want to make that comparison, so I'm not even trying.
The point I'm trying to make is this. If you want to argue whatever position you're taking, at least base it on facts.
Yep.
Don't gin up these phony stats and statistics. I mean, WikiLeaks is showing you how phony everything is.
The vote no on two don't have a legitimate argument.
I mean, I have to think about it, seriously. So what I'm saying is, my instinct is that I like competition because I'm a capitalist. Folks, I'm a capitalist. I'm not fond of socialism. I despise communism. Okay?
Right.
That's me.
And communism has monopoly at the core of its enterprise. There's
Ultimately-
usually one person or one entity in charge of everything.
Let me get a historical point out to you folks. Chou En-lai, and we're going back to the 70s, right? Pull Mao aside. Mao was the premier Communist Party of China, right? And he said, Mao, those Americans, they conned us. He said, what are you talking about? He said, they kept saying you can't have capitalism unless you're democratized, that they're joined at the hip. You have to one or the other. But I've been thinking about this. I've been looking at Japan, doing pretty good, by the way, right? And they're capitalist, economically. I've been looking at Taiwan, which is nothing more than nationalist China, who are doing it real well. I'm looking at South Korea. I'm looking at Singapore. And every one of these economies are booming, and they're all capitalistic. Not a one of them is a democracy. Not a one, okay? Hong Kong. So
Japan's not a democracy?
no. Basically, it's more a little bit fascist.
It's constitution driven though, right?
Yeah, but they're not a democracy in the sense that we're talking. Yeah, they are a democracy, but it's a...
Okay.
Okay. So the point that he was making is that capitalism is an economic system.
Right.
Communism is a
Political.
more of a political system. So you can remain a communist country as far as control and government oversight,
Right.
but you can allow capitalism and the reason why
State-sponsored capitalism.
why
I'll
they
call it.
want, but they wanted capitalism specifically because they have 1 billion starving people. And unless they created wealth, they wouldn't be able to feed their
Right.
population, which in effect would throw them out of power.
Right.
So the whole principle is to create wealth, and in the creation of wealth, you can now sustain your population, which every nation does. I mean, most nations go to war when they can't sustain their population and they have no choice. For example, Japan had no oil, no iron ore, no resources, and consequently had to expand to Indonesia, to Manchuria, to get these things in order to feed its population. That expansion conflicted with the special interests of the United States, consequently World War II.
Right.
You get my point?
Yeah.
So this happens. Now, what's happening in this country now, in our country, is we have forgotten the lessons of history about if you don't create wealth, you're a recipe for disaster.
Right.
There is no wealth creation taking place.
No, all we do is create resentment now.
We create debt. We get $20 trillion worth of debt. Okay, that's unsustainable. So these are the big issues that nobody's talking about. They're talking about who might have groped somebody back when, how, and I don't know why, or these other issues that are superfluous.
Right.
In the real sense. I mean, if you want to talk about character, which I'm a big believer, that character is the primary reason for someone. Well, when you have two people who are solely lacking in character, what do you do then?
Then you got to go to the facts.
As best you can.
Right.
And those are the decisions you have to make. Speaking of which, tomorrow night is the last and final debate, which brings us into our last segment.
Okay.
So, I don't know what's happening. Right now, everybody says these polls are all over the place.
Right.
I'm not sure I trust them.
Neither do I. I mean, I'm an eternal optimist, and right to the very end, I think there's a certain amount of gamesmanship going on where they're trying to demoralize the opponents that Democrats are in the Clinton campaign and the media, trying to demoralize so that we won't show up for the poll, because this is a turnout election type of thing. If we turn out, maybe we can make a difference. That being said, the polls don't look very favorable. I mean, he was moving up, and as soon as they started to see him moving up and he was getting too close, they saved that. The media did it. They said, you know what? I know how to kill this guy. We'll just do this thing with the video.
But there has not been that much of a difference. It's overstated. He's up 4 in Ohio. He is within striking distance in all of the battleground states.
Right.
So there's a false narrative going on. I was up in New Hampshire yesterday. I had to go up there with my grandson. And, you see things. I did not see a whole bunch of Hillary Clinton signs up there. I saw a number of, I was in Manchester area, and I saw a number of Trump signs up there, and I'll tell you who's in good shape, who's not supposed to be in good shape, is the current senator, Kelly Ayotte. She seems to be doing pretty well up there visually, okay?
Right.
Now, that might not translate. But all of the senators that were supposed to go down the tubes, they're either ahead. I mean, the Senate doesn't look like it's going to go.
Well, Kelly Ayotte said, I want nothing to do with Donald Trump. I mean, she did that, right?
Yeah, she did.
Right.
But, I mean, why should she have to depend on his?
No, I get it. I mean, I know why she did it, and I get it. But my only point is that since she disavowed him, that, the impact that he is having on, or the impact of that story breaking about the groping or whatever it was, breaking, is not impacting her.
By the way, that's been by and large debunked.
Well,
A whole number of them have been debunked.
oh, you're talking about the subsequent
The
stuff.
allegations, right. So, in this country, folks, this is not over.
Just remember Anita Hill. That's exactly what they did to Clarence Thomas, right?
But he became Supreme Court Justice.
Right. As soon as they
But
had.
it didn't happen to Bill Clinton.
Right, because
Didn't
he's
happen to
not
Anthony
conservative.
Didn't happen to the Kennedys.
Only Democrats get a pass.
So, I don't know about that part, Paul, but I mean, there's something that's sinister about timing and piling on and the way it's happened. The fellow that I'm really concerned about with is Paul Ryan, because he is playing into the hands of the globalists
Right.
and all of the multinationals and the large corporations. You see, folks tend to think that if you're a capitalist, as I am, that you somehow like big business. I can't stand monopoly.
Big businesses,
It's dangerous.
I love business, but not big business.
No, I don't like it at all. I like competition.
Yeah.
You see, and this is what I'm saying. I tell folks, think about going into a CVS store, and you walk in and there's rows and rows of shampoo and conditioners, all different types, all different flavors, at reasonable prices, Paul. And if you make a lousy shampoo and a lousy conditioner, you're going to be off the shelves, as it should be, winners and losers. But you know what? That's called capitalism because of competition. Now think about if you walked into that same CVS and all you have is one shampoo and one conditioner.
It would be more than you were paying,
Right?
and it wouldn't be as good.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem with monopoly. So if government has a monopoly, which why I don't like big government, I like diffuse power. This is why I'm opposed to globalism. I'm opposed to globalism because it's a concentration of power. We're going to get to a comment, and I love that comment because I think it's a fair assessment, about voters being sheep. Took issue with that, and also took issue with the fact that slanted definition of oligarchy. Well, yes and no. It's not. I mean, oligarchy is a very simple definition. It's the rule of a few. There's nothing slanted about that.
Right.
And the allusion to sheep was when people are flocked together as in unions, are flocked together as in special interest groups, they monolithically don't think what they're voting for. They sometimes don't vote in the best interest. That was the analogy. It's a metaphor. It's not a critique. Some of the other stuff is we'll talk about later. But the point of the matter is that we shouldn't have institutions, be they government, be they business, unions, who are so monolithic, so locked together, that there's no personal freedom, there's no choice. And that's what I rail against.
Right. Well, I was thinking about this because, as it's been playing out, you pointed out that the polls have kind of stabilized or whatever, but there were some polls that have come out, and you can it's always it's the Wall Street Journal, it's ABC. They're all trying to kill him.
The CBS poll is so far off the map.
Right.
It's not even.
Right.
But Monmouth, they're another group.
Right. But the point is that these things are all scaring somebody who doesn't want Hillary Clinton in, because I'm afraid that all it's going to do is continue the oligarchy that we talked about. Control of the government, all the levers of power continues to be in the hands of a few, and there go our liberties, and there goes the Constitution and all that. That's what I worry about, right? But so I'm thinking, what do we, so I was reading somewhere where somebody says, well, we're a society where, regardless of who wins, the losers accept what it is and they move on. But I think this is a different time. We really, while we can accept the winner, we cannot accept, we have to come to the conclusion that the levers of power, whether it's the institutions of higher ed, the education system, the media, finance, and government are locked together and are doing the bidding for themselves, kind of thing. We can't ignore that. So if Hillary Clinton wins, we need to be as vigilant as ever to push for something more than a public-private kind of point of view that Hillary Clinton might have, or that she's going to hire Wall Street people to write the laws and that kind of stuff. We need to have some.
Well, she's self-admitted that she's in favor of complete open borders, no borders.
Right.
From
Right.
the tip of the Straits of Magellan up to Nome, Alaska.
Right.
Two
So-
continents wide open.
So
your sovereignty, you can kiss it goodbye.
So
if people want that, fine.
So as people, we need to basically say to Hillary Clinton and all of them, if she gets elected, that we are not going, that we still believe very strongly in our sovereignty, and that we believe that the media has become way too out of control, and those things.
What if this is the wave of the future? Do you have to accept? What if you have to accept socialism as the norm? What if we have to, what if we have to be subservient to elites and oligarchies? If that's the way, because that's the way it's going.
Well, actually,
so who
is really in charge?
And then once you get rid of the Second Amendment, you can't even defend. And I don't own guns. I don't like guns.
So who actually is? If Hillary Clinton wins, who will actually be making the decisions about the future of this country?
Definitely not her.
Right. George Soros.
She's in bed with Soros.
So's Obama. I mean, how many times have we seen that
that
they pushed the decision?
That's theological. That's Saul Alansky at his best.
But it's also open borders, world order.
By the way, I was a member of, for most of my life, completely abandoned me. They used to fight. The unions were wonderful. They fought against people working long hours. And no, I used to see people. Nobody had any fingers
Right.
working in the shoe shops around here.
Right.
You know, and they work peaceful. Hey, you needed unions, so I'm not going to be one that's going to knock unions.
Right.
But everybody, when they become monopolies, when they go too far,
Over the top, and
right,
I agree.
the pendulum has to come back. That's the whole point I'm trying to make. But if the pendulum is so far out there, I mean, why is it that everybody is a sexist or a racist or whatever, a homophobe, if they disagree with something? Why do people call them names, people names?
Because they can't win the argument, and that's how.
Then that's silly. You can turn around and you can have a discussion, or you can have a debate, and it can be heated
Yep,
over situations, but you don't attack the individual.
yep, that's right.
Particularly when it's not true. That really scalds me. You know, when you taint someone, you throw mud at them, and you throw, you know, I mean, it's just stigmata.
Yep,
Can't get away from that, and that's all I do. You know
Right.
what they have here? How about that they have documented that the campaign, the Clinton campaign, the DNC, they sent people to Trump rallies specifically to create chaos
Right.
and make them look. They got paid to do that. Now, why isn't anybody screaming about that? Why isn't anybody screaming about George Stephanopoulos, who was a Clinton, who left the administration because of the Monica Lewinsky thing?
Right.
Right?
and then went to
he's money-
ABC to protect Clinton for the rest of his
That's all he's done.
professional
You know what
career.
they had on? They have spent zero time, all the network, zero on WikiLeaks, and every night you can't get away from the allegations of women who allegedly were
Right.
groped, kissed inappropriately, and the rest of it. I mean, sometimes that's in the eye of the beholder. I'm not. I got six granddaughters, 2 daughters. Love them dearly. Anybody that approached them inappropriately, I don't have to worry about third parties. I get my own baseball bat. You get what I
Right.
mean?
Yep.
That's simple. So don't try to label me any which way you want. But I'm telling you right here and now, allegations in our system are just that, allegations. Don't the Clintons run behind, where's the evidence, where's the evidence? I think I was talking about where's the evidence, there's no evidence,
Right.
Isn't that their defense?
On everything.
On everything. So if someone else says, hey, there's no evidence, yeah, there's a trail, there's a path. No. You know, this is
Right.
what scalds me.
Right.
If you want to go after him on a patent, then own up to your own patents.
Right.
That's basically it.
Yeah.
Honesty, folks, just a little truth. Don't insult my intelligence.
No, I agree.
And then they'll turn around and then call me names.
And that's what they do. There's no
Yeah.
question about it. So what are you thinking? How do you think the debate's going to go tomorrow night?
I have no idea. I have no idea, and it doesn't matter because the press will decide who won it. Whether if she is standing and breathing afterwards, even if he does a number on her, oh, she was wonderful. He stalked her. They were trying to say he stalked her. You know, the old Lazarus. He never left this area. She invaded his area. But they don't tell you that.
No, they don't.
You know what I mean? Actually, to be honest with you, Paul, because I communicated with you the night of that debate, I thought that she did a number on him at the early part. I thought it was terrible in the early part. Then he came back like the wind.
Right.
I happen to think he did fairly well in the first debate, and I thought he did terrible in all of the debates with the Republicans. So I'm not a fan of his debating.
No, I mean, in the traditional sense of the word, he's a terrible debater.
But, you know, there's no
You know what
question.
you know what he's been able to do, and this is something that is kind of ties in with what you're talking about. He comes onto the scene as a Republican with 17 others or whatever in the primary, right? And we had gotten to a point where the Democrats, you were just talking about how the Democrats are always using ad hominem attacks to kind of get to move their agendas down. Nothing to do with the facts, just, if you don't agree with them, you're a jerk, and that's the mild term that they use. In Donald Trump, when he started jabbing and using essentially ad hominem attack,
Yeah.
everybody
He's
was
guilty of, by the way.
what?
He's guilty of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But he was giving them a dose of their own friggin' medicine.
But it still was left a sour taste in my mouth.
No, I know,
But
but
I'm not, that's not the big issue with me. The big issue with me is this issue of globalism and this big issue of the people, the common people. Look, the ideal Republican candidate in this election is Hillary Clinton. She's the definition of modern day Republicanism.
Right.
She's for big business, she's for Wall Street, she's for globalization, she's for open book, she's for intervention in foreign wars, which is neocon, which is totally a Republican position.
Right. So, and if you take that in conjunction with the leader of the Senate and the leader of the House of Representatives, both two Republicans, assuming they keep control, who do you think would be able to better check or which president do you think they would be better able to check? Would it be Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton?
That's the operative question.
It's Trump. They could check Trump. They couldn't check because they're going to agree with Hillary on so many things.
We'll find out. We got to throw up our commentaries here. Do we get that little graphic up there? The commentaries. We got a good one here. I like this one. I wish we had more like him speaking about Sheriff Cousins last week. It's a nice show, and they were very impressed with him. And then I found the show offensive. The comments made about voters being sheep and slanted definition of oligarchy was not accurate. Additional comments about women and the way they dress on TV was beyond sexist. I live in Lynn and will never watch this program again. Hopefully, Lynn Cable will offer equal time for a person from the Clinton campaign to balance this program. I have no problem if people want to come on. I don't think they'll do very well. But I'm not here to be fair and balanced. That's not my interest. And by the way,
If we don't have to worry about that.
what?
About you being fair and balanced?
No.
But me neither. I mean, and I think
I'm
that's
telling you the way I feel and the way I think,
Right.
and that's it. Now, if you come up with a better mousetrap,
Right.
fine. But if equal time is I mean, as I've said before, I don't think Jesus has to give Lucifer equal time.
That's right. I like that. But I think that people at home, if they don't believe some of the stuff that we talk about, they should just go online and
Yeah.
read some of the WikiLeaks
But I
emails.
I have no problem. The definition of oligarchy, that's pretty accurate because it's pretty simple. It's
Yeah.
the rule of a few. And I don't understand the sexist part of it because one says that the women on TV anchors dress provocatively, which is absolutely true.
Right.
All right. So, I mean, and for that matter, by the way, so we understand each other, the men dress provocatively too.
Right.
They always look good, always well groomed, right?
Right. Well, it's all about it. It's an image. Yeah.
Right. So it's not, and I wish we'd get away from stuff because it should be about personhood. Personhood does not transcend gender, doesn't it?
Right.
And that's it. So, on that note, how are we doing there? It's time. We're playing on Wednesday.
Oh, right. This is
Paul,
Tuesday.
You
Yeah.
got to have your quick wit going there.
Stand
All of us
corrected.
here at Lynn Community TV. Have a great evening.